Okay, we're going live.
And you need to just move your chair so your background is perfect.
Oh, we're actually live now. Hello, everyone. There's our echo in the background. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Ascension Sessions and happy Friday the 13th. It's a harvest full moon. It's an amazing night. Look at the lighting. I mean, it's just gorgeous. We're here with the wonderful Tracey Ash, and she's live from Mount Shasta. Even though
I am 7,777 feet, and maybe a little extra. Yeah, isn't that epic? Like, woo!
It's so epic. I mean, I told her she looks like she might even be in Tibet or something at the top of the mountain there.
I know, maybe I am, and I'm just fooling you.
Awesome. So I'm just going to say hello really quick to everyone in the chat room and let them know that they can send us messages in there. So you guys, if you want to have a question for Tracey or myself later on in the show, please just put your question in all caps. And Tracey is joining us live from the mountain, so she won't be in the chat room, but I can certainly relay your questions to her. So first of all, thank you, Tracey, for joining us tonight on the Ascension Sessions. I know you just got into California recently, and you've probably been traveling for a long time. So thank you for making time for us as you journey your way up to Mount Shasta.
Yeah, we just got off the flight LA, and then we took it's about 9 hours drive. Mm-hmm. So got here during the night, reset today, and ready to go. So already been to the headwaters, and we've been to Panther Meadows as well, and then up here, just aligning with the energies of Mount Shasta and honoring the sacred gateway. So it's super exciting. I'm getting ready to do a big sky watch this evening as well.
Awesome. That sounds amazing. And it looks like it's really clear skies. So you'll have, and because it's colder, you'll have really awesome visibility.
Yeah, and also even at sunset, you can see the grid going live already. You know, really here the energy is always super live and super tangible, and you get key moments in the day where you can just step into a very different matrix of reality. So that's where we're at here. And as you know, Shasta is a formidable power site. And it's a place where things happen, dimensional activities, right. And it's a really interesting gateway for activity, abilities, and upgrading your ascension.
Yeah, it's definitely a very powerful site. And I love the feeling of when you first arrive, because you can kind of just feel all the city stuff fall away, you know, all the hustle and bustle of being in a crowded area just really starts to fall away, and you can kind of hear your own inner guidance much more clearly. So I love that. I love that feeling when I get up there.
Yeah, the unplug from the false matrix. It's totally so key, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then also, though, I think even more so, it's that grounding whilst you're in expansion as well. So it's a really big hit in terms of recalibration, which is just perfect. I think that's why so many people flock here.
Yes.
I mean, it's a big ascension hit on so many different dimensions, and you know, the 7 gateways of our planet. That's what it's all about, and really being called to those gateways during these times so that we hit the ascension spot correctly rather than misfiring it. It's pretty easy to misfire it as well, you know, when we're locked into social media or we're locked into the false matrix of cities, and our programming can be locked up. So it just gives us that opportunity to unwind. And, you know, that's very much part of my work in terms of power sites and gateways all over the planet. It's to not be part of the false matrix, to acknowledge it, but to firmly leave it behind so that we're capable of creating the new reality gateways of the times. So I've been speaking quite a lot about it over the last week in different interviews. So, you know, really what's required of us in terms of the ascension and evolution, and looking at not only the signposts of ascension, but looking at our own signposts in terms of what we need to heal in ourselves. So what's a really hot topic at the moment is, of course, the wound and the nature of the recurring wound when we're tied into the false matrix. And then what are our spiritual warfare technologies and what that means in terms of, you know, really upping our game in terms of meditation processes and healing practices, and what it means on a frequency level to really hit the new gateways in terms of ascension. So again, we've got this backdrop behind us. It is about reconnecting with the sacred technology of our planets, our Earth, and knowing that we have the data and we have the energy available to us. It's about re-stepping back into the resources so that we're constantly reset on every dimension. And that's what we're being called to do currently. So it really takes us kind of beyond anything that is more of a superficial process of meditation where we're working in a coping strategy. I mean, the work now has to go really, really deep, because the false matrix manipulations and the ramping up, the increase of the false matrix is so intense, and it's a little more toxic than it's been also, because of course it's game on, and the disclosures there and the reality gateways are open, and even the most mainstream of people are waking up in terms of the manipulation. So, you know, we're really looking at how we maintain a higher frequency so our awareness is super sharp. And that's the only way to be able to detect the distortions and the non-truths and the disinformation, and, you know, and really getting into a place of clarity in terms of ourselves. So we're not in a place where we're projecting false realities or we're projecting the world. And as you know, that's a massive interest of mine in this arena in terms of how we lead the way as influencers. But leading the way as influencers also means that we can't be in our wound and then provide individuals with information, because that is disinformation. So we got to get the right signature in terms of our field. We got to be hitting the evolutionary gateways within ourselves constantly so that we can show others the way. And so my teachings are very much about coming into that reality ourselves, and my students in terms of my schools, they're trained to do that so that we can lead by example rather than not. So I think in terms of our community currently, there's a widening gap, and the gap is information and research and the talk about evolution and ascension, and then what's happening next in terms of a new wave of influencers who are not only researching, but they're also hitting the ascension hotspot in terms of their own self-responsibility. And that part is hugely important because, of course, we're impacting on so many unseen dimensions in terms of who we are. And it's that careful work that we now must commit ourselves to. And, that's where the new wave is coming in terms of what comes next. And so it isn't enough to just disclose, it isn't enough to talk about what is coming up next or the possibilities of what's coming up next. It's definitely about where we're going in terms of our own practices and our own inner realities, and then our own outer realities, so that we're actually living the ascension rather than contemplating it. And this is where we're at.
So Tracey, do you think that these people who you're talking about understand that their actions affect everyone, including the planet, on a multi-dimensional level? So I just heard you say that, and I understand it, and you teach it, but I wonder if these influencers realize that the work they're doing is, affecting everything on a multidimensional level. Because what I hear you saying is like, they're talking about it, but they're maybe not necessarily cleaning up their energy field signature. And so they're spreading, what's in their field in addition to not doing the work. So do you think they're aware of it? Do you think?
Well, I've been doing some, the past few weeks, I've been doing some epic interviews with some amazing evolutionaries. So it really is about looking at the signature and agendas, politics, etc. And it's not just necessarily in our own community, in every community currently. So I think what's coming up currently for everyone, of course, is the wound and is programming and is subconscious programming. But of course, that internal work takes effort and it takes dedication and it takes self-listening. And if we're attached to the programming of conventional education and what that means in terms of information, then with it goes all of the false matrix programming. So we must be careful in terms of the way that we relate to what being educated is in terms of information, disinformation, etc., etc. And if we approach our own learning and our own access of information in the same way as a conventional educational institution or system, then that is going to definitively bring with it all of the issues of the false matrix. So we're looking at entering a new frontier in terms of the way that we learn and the way that we're educated and the way that we listen. And that essential part of listening is an essential part of tapping into one's sensitivity so we can penetrate the smoke screens of disinformation. And that's hugely important, when we're exploring different sources of information as well. For me, I was trained to go to Oxford University. So I was privately tutored to go to Oxford University, but I said no to doing philosophy, politics, and economics. So I was trained in terms of looking at information sources, looking at references, etc. So what I believe currently is this: how we look at information better and how we look at the pitfalls of, for example, research, and really looking at how we maybe spend more time in field work as well, so that we're, looking at the reality gateways over the information sources, because there's a lot of talk, but there is not a lot of direct experience, and that's hugely important, because if we're talking about ascension and contact, what happens with ascension and contact direct experiences?
It changes
the reality. Yeah, and the
Yeah.
reality is, of course, then the agenda isn't about self. The agenda isn't about projection. The agenda isn't about projection of the wound. And when we have those epic and biblical life changing experiences, which, of course, ascension and contact bring in these incredible, sacred moments, change points in our journeys.
Mm-hmm.
And when we have those change points in our journeys, there's no going back in terms of our political agendas or attachments to the false matrix manipulations and dramas and being caught up in all of that stuff is, of course, non-ascension agenda driven. So,
Right.
we really must uphold not only the information of this arena and this community. I mean, what we have is extremely special gateways that are only possibilities if we also choose to inwardly change ourselves. So our inner work must be as immaculate as our research work, which is more external.
Mm-hmm.
But what I must stress is that we must adhere to and connect with direct experiences. So if we're speaking about contact, I want to see those influencers with contact evidence and
Right.
in contact experiences, because it's here that you have the dimensional shifts which make you a better person.
Mm-hmm.
And we all need healing, and we all require healing for our entire lives. So no one is above and beyond that.
Right.
So real inner work means humility, and real inner work means that, we're dedicated to working on ourselves, and we take
Mm-hmm.
responsibility and we make mistakes, and we take responsibility for the mistakes that we have.
Mm-hmm.
What I always find interesting is, the detection through frequency. I'm a trained metaphysician, so my interest is dimensional. My interest is in the unseen. So, how we penetrate the void, and of course, how we penetrate the void, which is what everyone's speaking about,
Mm-hmm.
is to be trained in metaphysics, is to enter metaphysics, is to touch and reach those mysteries of our existence, and to touch and reach the reality gateways that we are locked out of in the false matrix and lower density programs.
Mm-hmm.
So the reality is this: I've been thinking about it so much recently, so that we're really clear about this, and we can be super impressed as we were as children,
Mm-hmm.
super impressed in the classroom. Oh my god, that person has so much information. Oh my god. But all they've done is research something, and they're capable of recounting it in a parrot like style. So really need to take that step beyond that, so that there is an embodiment of what these
Right.
reality gateways mean. And if we have contact, I mean, those dimensions and those extraterrestrial species, they leave a footprint and a signature with us.
Mm-hmm.
And anything that we experience in terms of gateways that are indeed beyond the void, we completely identify with, and we learn and we educate in ways beyond anything conventional. So
Mm-hmm.
we firmly leave that third dimensional timeline behind. So, for example, in a gateway of experiencing dimensional beings, dimensional intelligence, simply by being in that direct experience, our intelligence is increased, our neural pathways, gateways are recalibrated, our emotional system is upscaled, our central nervous system is rebooted, recalibrated. So we are constantly becoming better individuals, better human beings, based on what we choose to initiate and experience. It's going into the beyond, and that beyond takes a fearlessness and a capacity to view oneself with impeccable humility and honesty. You know, where there's politics and where there's wound projection, there is fear within the context of looking at oneself deeply, because manipulation is all about look over here rather than really becoming transparent and really allowing oneself to be vulnerable and authentic and genuine. So those ascension gateways are hugely important because they factor in everything that we need to become as humanity. So if we're speaking about ascension and evolution, we must lead the way as human beings and have higher integrity and honesty and responsibility capabilities. And we must clearly mark out, you know, what is agenda driven and manipulation fueled. I mean, this is the reality that we're currently entangled with. But if we allow ourselves to be entangled, then we allow ourselves to be entangled in the false matrix. So we're either in or we're out, you know, and that's something that we've finished writing about in this last book, and I'm currently working on. It's just being edited, actually. We'll be releasing the two books at the same time. It's the right time to release the books on this stuff, so people can really know the signposts. You know, we have to take the next step. So yes, we have the information. Thank you.
What are the titles?
So
What are the titles of
so
the books?
so one's going to be reality
Sorry,
revolution, and the other one's going to be wound
could you say
weaver.
that again? I'm
And
sorry, we lost you
so
for a second. Could you say that again?
okay, so one's going to be reality revolution, and that deals with 3, 4, 5D and beyond. And then the second is wound weaver. I mean, wound weaver is, for me, it is the next level. It's the next level book that people really, really need in terms of detecting the wound, which is, of course, the central key issue within the context of the hijacks, the projections, the manipulations, and the repeat cycles that we all experience when we're not doing enough work on ourselves. So, you know, how we navigate ego and how we see this as, you know, the job in hand, so that we are square facing it. And that takes it takes courage, and it takes a fearlessness, and
And
it
dedication.
takes and it
What
takes the
about
time.
why is having a high frequency mentorship imperative? Like
Why is it
is that so
important? Ah, look at me, darling. um, because I'm fairly happy person and I don't project my personal agendas on you. just
Well, I just think it's another piece of the puzzle, right? It's another piece of the puzzle, like how we're
it's like,
influenced and mentored is so key. It's so key.
It is, and you know, it takes mentorship to take you into the gateways and into going beyond where your own blind spots are. You know, that's essentially my job. I don't tell people how to heal themselves. I don't work in that capacity. It's a little old paradigm for me
Right, right.
in terms of offering generic healing approaches.
Mm-hmm.
So I work with approaches to evolution, which are much more unique based, and that's what we need to do. But in order to work with a unique approach, and in order for me to be working at full capacity in terms of holding and supporting you guys as my clients or participants or those I serve, um, I have to be operating at a very high level of gateways open. So I always have to be doing enough work on myself to be able to really hold you further and hold those I work with further.
Yeah.
Um, so the gateways have to be open. So any attachments that I have in terms of the false matrix, I'm losing the game in terms of serving those who seek my help. So it doesn't work to the advantage, to the tipping point of the ascension process if I'm politically involved in any manipulations.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about coming into, and this is for all of us, it's not just my teachings, it's not just me speaking about what I do in my own practices, but we must look at what we must disentangle ourselves from in terms of low density
Right.
attachments,
Yeah.
distractions, and manipulations. And of course, we do need good mentors, because those mentors help us to see when we can't see,
Right.
and that's what's important about mentorship. And of course, high frequency embodiment and being around a mentor who is immensely grounded and solid as a human being and
Mm-hmm.
decent as a human being. The most advanced spirituality is super genuine, is super authentic, and it's super here, and it's super practical. It doesn't have any grandeur attached to it, because the frequency is where it's at in any situation with any human being. So we find ourselves in service wherever we are, whoever we are, and whoever we're with,
Mm-hmm.
and that's part of this extremely, yeah, it's an extremely humble place to be in terms of the ascension process. There is no need to have any elitism attached to it, because of course when we have elitism we have walls. So we're looking at how we break those walls, break the void, break the
Mm-hmm.
manipulations, break the distractions, and any attachments to low density drama. And of course, it it closes down reality gateways.
Hmm.
So
Interesting.
it impacts our happiness, and it impacts our ability to detect who we are in that moment of time, which of course we're constantly changing. So the new paradigm of awareness and evolution and ascension, it's all about the mastery, and it's all about being able to check into who we are. And when we're checking into who we are, then we can take greater responsibility for who we are.
Mm-hmm.
And I've carefully analyzed this. What is it to be 3D? What is it to be 4D? Why is there issues in terms of embodiment? What's happening when we're in practices that are more distraction based in terms of who we are? What's happening in terms of our reality? Why aren't we able to penetrate the veil? Why aren't we seeing the magic in our reality on a day to day level? Why aren't we seeing the signs? Why aren't we having the contact? Why aren't we having the dimensional guidance?
I feel like I feel like everything is designed to prevent us from doing those very things that you just mentioned.
I know. However,
and I feel like we're constantly being bombarded, you know, and at the same time, the other side of that coin, I mean, I feel like the elite might be shaking in their boots a little bit because
oh
there
my
is
goodness,
such
yeah.
a mass awakening happening, even in the mainstream, like you said. So does that mean like they're going to turn up the volume on all designing all these things to keep us asleep? Or like, what do you think is going to happen? Are we going to bust through this veil of, you know,
I'll
like we've all
walk
been
you.
drugged?
I'll walk you through it kind of
Okay.
a little, and I'll kind of simplify it. Okay, we have a resurgence, a renaissance in terms of our sacred and sovereign contracts. So this is all being put into place. The ancients also took care of it in their prophecies. So if you look at the sacred seeding of humanity, we'll track that back to ancient times. My particular interest of always is ancient Egypt. Now, the ancient Egyptians were able not only to work with astonishing awareness capabilities, all the stuff that is penetrating the void on a day-to-day basis, they were able and capable of seeing far into the time phases. So where we are now is a pretty easy activity for the ancients. You know, if you look at any of the prophecies all over the world, and it's all coming together very, very nicely. So everything's synced, everything's perfect. If you're here now, you're part of that sacred seeding, that evolutionary seeding. However, we also have timeline chasers, and we also have those individuals who are part of a constant cycle of the wound. Now, I'm also aware of how we can work with the false matrix, with the density, because of course I'm an alchemist and I don't just speak about alchemy. I'm a practicing alchemist who is working consistently at the sites that I reference, and I work consistently with the ancient intelligence that I reference, because I'm not just an internet researcher or book researcher who is working with certainly some levels of disinformation. So we have to get to the sites. We got to get to the sites, and we got to access the sacred grid of the planet, and we've got to enter the planetary grid, which is already here, which is the access points, the gateways, etc. And that provides us with the reboot, and it's entering the void. So, you know, what we, yeah.
Can I ask you a question about that? So I hear like a really big part of your message is get to the sites, get to the sacred sites.
Okay. Well, that's part of the
ascension and your wound healing process. However, I've also heard you say that, you know, you have to be initiated in order to receive the healings at these sacred sites. So for somebody who's a free spirit who could just go wherever they wanted, let's say they're on hiatus, and they could drive up to Mount Shasta tomorrow.
Okay.
Are they going to still be able to get some of those healings and benefits without a guide?
Okay. Right. Okay.
Because you're inspiring me to go up there tonight.
All right. Okay, I know. And like, I'm here now and I'm just like, all around me, I'm looking at these columns of light that are being activated at this time of night. I mean, the matrix is crazy here. It's amazing.
The coloring on you is really beautiful. The light color.
Yeah, it is incredible. So that's what we've got. We've got these gateways, which is the sacred technology of humanity in ascension, for ascension. We've already been an ascension before, there's always been a massive cover up in terms of ascension and evolution. 7 gateways of our planet. So the 7 key earth chakras, those are the core points that you want to access. Now we're just preceding the equinox. So get your astrology right, get your gateways right in terms of the equinoxes, the solstice as well. We're on a full moon tonight.
Yes.
You know, so that's part of how we can ramp up our sacred gateway experience. Because what you've got to remember with me is I don't just have expertise in one particular area. I mean, I nail it with ascension, I nail it with sacred destiny. I can read what your sacred destiny is, what your highest frequency existence can be once you stop attaching yourself to the distractions, and once you really become more aware of what your sacred life lessons are, over and above referencing your history and your stories from pain and suffering. So much of my work is about detecting the generic stereotypes that lock us out of this unique sacred sovereignty. And, you know, that's been so much part of your mission with your own family, and it's been so much part of your work with me in terms of identifying uniqueness over and above what we're expected to be in conventional society. But again, what we must accept is there needs to be a very careful examination, and we need to run the diagnostics in terms of what's appropriate and what is not appropriate, and what is healthy for ourselves and what is healthy for those that we love. And that means that often we have to assess that and reject what is conventional. And the wise will reject the conventional. And again, that comes into often our lineage, our star seeding, our sacred seeding as well, because of course, during these times, there are star seeds, there's millennials, there are indigos, there's forerunners in terms of the indigos as well. And so those individuals are warriors in terms of untangling themselves from the false matrix.
Right.
And again, what we've got to be able to do is to look at and celebrate our uniqueness and how unconventional we are. And if we are attached to conventional, then I don't really believe that we're indigos or we're evolutionary or even revolutionaries for that matter. And although we may seek to be, I mean, we've got to really, really assess with complete honesty what our attachments are. And if our conventional attachments are to the false matrix, then we are indeed selling our light, we're selling our life force, and we have sold out.
Right.
So that's the question you've got to ask. And, you know, there can't be any faux spirituality with this. It either is or it isn't. But, you know, the question is interesting because there are so many different gateways that we can approach this. Upholding the dream of your sacred destiny is one. And of course, we can live in the knowledge of our sacred dream of destiny, but that may go unlived. And so we may be living in the false matrix. And so we've prioritized where our God is, you know, and again, that selling out is a huge factor in terms of whether we are or we're not. And again, of course, we can have access to information that makes it interesting. It makes it an interesting subject.
Right.
It doesn't
then we go right back into the matrix.
Yeah. So it makes it interesting, and it makes it a possibility, and it makes it, a temptation.
Food for thought. Hey,
but
just
it
really
doesn't. Yeah,
quickly, we have
yeah.
Dex and Lizzie in the chat room, and they just wanted to say hi. And and Dex said, "Great light with the mountain in the back. Tracey looks like she's glowing," which is true.
Oh,
The light,
it's so
amazing.
true.
But Tracey,
I
you were
mean,
going to talk about timeline chasers, and I interrupted you, and I want to go back to that because that's a really fascinating subject.
you
So, can
know,
you speak on timeline chasers?
okay, so
You guys came in at a good time.
they did. So, often we're tackling that within the context of, who we are, what our contracts are, what we're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. If we're genuinely dedicated to the ascension path, to the evolutionary path, believe me, timeline chasers are going to be part of what you experience and part of what you need to upscale your efforts in terms of tackling them, dealing with them, and firmly closing down those contracts. So my work is super connected with the spiritual warfare that is of these times. So my work is massively genuine and it's hugely authentic. However, if I'm entangled with timeline chasers, they will be dealt with appropriately. And that's also part of the way we must close down these toxic cycles. So we must close these toxic cycles down for the collective, and we must close these toxic cycles down as individuals. So, who are the sacred keepers of the light on the planet? And those individuals are born to live their lives in high frequency. And that, of course, is a threat to those who are indeed timeline chasers, because, of course, they're connected with and they're immersed in a lower density reality gateway.
Yeah.
So we have to disentangle ourselves. And the timeline chasers were put into place long ago. So these are repeat cycles. And I repeat again, you will deal with these particular individuals, situations, and themes lifetime to lifetime. What I find really, really interesting is now. So we hit that 26,000 year cycle. We got all of the time phases syncing up. We've got the precession of the equinox. We've got the void in place, which also means we have access to resource that we wouldn't have normally access to in previous lifetimes. So we've got a massive return to unity. I mean, even when I'm speaking about it, of course, it pushes buttons in individuals because it draws out the fears around taking our power as light workers and as evolutionaries who are standing on the edge of a new frontier. And I mean, we're standing on the edge of the abyss in terms of the unknown because nothing has gone before this. So what we lay down is and should be upon the instructions of sacred and sovereign. And that I find hugely fascinating because, of course, the gateways that are going to secure our ascension gateways, pathways, those gateways are going to be the gateways where we're in direct experience, because we need also to be accessing the channel dimensions of information. So we've been there before as souls, as individuals who've experienced previous incarnations on the planet. We've been there before. The ascension has already existed here on the planet. It's not something that's new. We've just had a massive cover up. However, once we begin to initiate and we're changing our frequency again, then those dimensions can come forth and give us the credible next level information. So the help is at hand. Now, in a higher frequency, those dimensional gateways go live. And, you know, when we talk about this, and I mean this, I am a planetary grid worker and I am a keeper of particular gateways across the planet. And I know what happens when I go to a particular gateway. You know what happens when I go to particular gateways. We have, you know, the most crazy contact, and it's not just at one site, and it isn't random. I mean, it's time, date, and location. And I particularly know what I'm doing in terms of contact. I know what I'm doing at the sites. I know it's impacting the planetary grid. I know it's impacting the stability of the ascension of the planet. I know what I'm doing on a bigger level in terms of ourselves and what we can do in terms of the timeline chasers. You will feel their signature in your field, and you will feel the karmic nature of their presence, and it will not feel good. Trust it. And walk away within the context of the timeline chasers. So it's hugely important to not sit on fences in terms of, you know, how we've been programmed in terms of spirituality to be all loving and all encompassing and we love everybody, etc., etc. I think no, these times are about being really discerning and savvy and smart in terms of our ascension, and savvy and smart in terms of what demarks ascension, what demarks high frequency light, what demarks high frequency intelligence. And that means 100%. It's not fake or faux. It's not pop spirituality. It's not turning a blind eye to people who have their total allegiance to the false matrix.
Right.
Yeah. So it really is, that's where our battle is, and that's where our spiritual war is. And that's what we need to tackle full on, up close and personal. And we need to see it as an evolutionary right of these times. And I promise, if that's what you're interested in doing, and if that's what you have no choice about within the context of your loved ones, because this isn't about us, it's about the future of, yeah. So we're standing on the front line with this work. I mean, when the false matrix, when it's time to tear it down, and when Earth has indeed had enough, and I wrote about this on the plane coming over from the UK to the States. I mean, our sacred planet is the sacred mirror of the reality in which we exist in. And when more and more of us fail to listen to the signs, then the earth will respond accordingly. However, once we have enough individuals in place who are firmly adhered to the next phase of evolution, the gateways can open.
Oh, wow.
And so the legends, the legends can then materialize and manifest here. So this isn't about what happened in terms of the next phase on a different level or a different dimension. This is about how the gateways can open within us and through us and within this reality.
Right.
So when we look at the legends and myths, then the dimensional beings and creatures and realities can then begin to manifest forth on the planet.
Wow.
So we can live in those myths and we can live in those legends. And that's the world that I share with those who seek to walk with me in terms of what comes next, in terms of the ascension. But those individuals have to be ready. And every time we stand with others who are making their pledge of allegiance to evolution and to ascension in those ways, our direct experience is hugely important, because in terms of our spiritual warfare, every time we experience those human beings and every time we experience those gateways, we are indeed consistently upgrading our own evolution. So it's win-win-win.
Yeah. And can you talk about the, yes, absolutely. That's such an amazing point. Before I go to my next question, I love that you said that it's all about the next generation, and we're kind of like laying down the groundwork for them, for the stargates to open. What's happening? Is there a drum circle happening?
Yeah. Well, this is the this is the really interesting thing. Okay, so we know that metaphysics has always been a marginalized and fringe or indie activity or area of interest.
Yes.
Okay, our programming in terms of the false matrix is put into place metaphysically. So when we're trained in metaphysics, then we begin to unlock ourselves from the metaphysics of the way the wound is put into place generation to generation. So the work that we do on ourselves becomes the spiritual warfare in terms of releasing the next generations.
Sure.
I mean,
that makes sense.
This is what is in the new books, and this is what is, the editors who've been working on it with me, they're like, oh my God, we haven't come across any literature like this, because this is the information that people acquire. I spent a lot of time since my childhood. I could detect the false matrix when I came in as a child, and I was aware of how reality was unfolding before me in terms of truth and non-truth. And I could read frequency, and I could read the realities that human beings were creating around me.
Could you see the frequency fences as a child?
Yes.
Wow. Okay. So can you talk a little bit about frequency fences and how we can overcome them individually and as a collective? Because I've been feeling it a lot lately.
I know, and it's also what's put into place in terms of the false matrix. So there is certainly control in place. This is my work. This is why my work is hugely it's hugely field work orientated, because part of feeling the frequency fences is also about being aware of the knowledge that is required, both within the context of your own attachments to the false matrix. So there's a frequency fence, the planetary grid, and so where we're aligned, where we reside, whether we're accessing sacred earth or not, or the true planetary grid or not, whether we're existing in the trauma of the false matrix. So again, that brings up what we got to purge ourselves of and what we've got to detox ourselves from in terms of our attachments and where we're giving our resource and our light. So again, it's about where we're selling ourselves to in a very simple way. Like where we're selling our resource, and our priceless resource is our life force and our light. And where are we indeed placing it? Where are we investing it? Where are we selling it? Are we selling ourselves out? So we look at the convention, we look at the stereotype cycles, we look at the stereotypes that we buy into. So, what are we working for in terms of a 5-day week, 6-day week, 7-day week? What are we giving our complete attention to?
Mm-hmm.
and whether it's appropriate for these times. But as soon as we start to dismantle all of these false constructs, then we can start to create a quality of life that redefines who we are as human beings. So the frequency fences are as much created in our attachments. So what we are conventionally led to in terms of our programming, and of course programming starts early in education,
Right.
and programming starts early within the context of the metaphysics of our programming, and
And
whether our
in
parents love
religion.
us or not. And
And in
yeah,
religion.
but even in just in terms of basics, in
Mm-hmm.
terms of love.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because what is allegedly love, that is also found in frequency,
Mm-hmm.
and what that means to be disconnected from the false matrix. When our parents can fully see us, they can fully appreciate who we are in all of our entirety, because our parents can see themselves in all of their entirety, and we've spoken in depth about this, because this is about you being the most complete individual. So your children can be complete individuals, complete human beings.
Right.
When we do that, then we're not projecting the false matrix upon our children. Frequency fence.
Mm-hmm.
And we can celebrate them in all of their entirety, and we can honor their unconventional dreams. And
Mm-hmm.
the unconventional dreams are, of course, the solution to the frequency fences. So, I've done this with my own children. I've done this with myself.
Yes.
So, my kids have been carefully initiated throughout all of the programs that I've done. They've been carefully acknowledged and honored, and they've been carefully examined in terms of what their sacred destiny is,
Mm-hmm.
and that has been upheld. I've had visions and prophecies within the context of my own children. Both of them were given stage names when they were born.
Yeah.
And of course,
I've heard you say that before.
so,
Yeah.
and they're 18 and 19, and both of them are going into performing arts careers. And you've heard Scarlett, she's just an
Yeah.
incredible
She's amazing.
songwriter. And, so these kids have been listened to. It isn't about,
Mm-hmm.
it's about preparing our children for the lives that they've been gifted by Creator.
Right.
And that means the kids have a higher level
Mm-hmm.
of dream to connect with and manifest, because these kids are, of course, the solution to the false matrix.
Right.
We can be the solution to the false matrix if we stop attaching ourselves to it, stop attaching ourselves to the pain of the wound, and
Mm-hmm.
stop attaching ourselves to being beaten by the false matrix, being beaten down by the system, being beaten down by the agenda of the elite power and systems, the structures, the drama of it. So
Yeah.
these are all frequency fences.
That car alarm, they're trying to stop our interview.
I know, right? Oh, the reptilians must have got up here.
You might run into Reppy up there.
I know, right? Well, for your listeners, I do have on the ground contact with, several species of
Interesting beings.
extraterrestrials, and they all get dealt with accordingly, which is such good fun, eh? So
Yeah.
frequency fences, I mean, it's the same thing. We have encounters with human beings on foot. We have encounters with extraterrestrials. How we deal with them is always where we are within the context of our own consciousness.
Right.
So for me, it's always about stepping over the frequency fences, stepping over our fears, doing the internal work, which allows us to tackle the experiences that we've been programmed to fear the most.
Are the timeline chasers usually off-worlders?
No, definitely not.
No.
I mean, no, I mean, I think, just as a dimensional worker and someone who works with the gateways at so many different levels, I mean, programming is probably the most tricky to navigate. And of course, where we are as humanity, I mean, it's so duality driven, and it can be immensely difficult because of the nature of separation that exists on this planet. So programming is one of the biggest issues to comprehend and take responsibility for, and also solve,
Yeah.
So that's the critical issue to solve on the planet. Currently, it impacts our quality of existence. It completely destroys our sacred and sovereign existence. And that comes through in the subtleties of our interactions.
Right.
And again, this is based in the frequency of our thoughts and our feelings, in our consciousness.
Right.
So wherever we have lower density thoughts and feelings, I mean, the ancient Egyptians were just genius in not only their information, but in their technologies. They built the architectural structures on profound gateways. You have the throat chakra of the planets, but you don't just have a natural stargate. You have a matrix of monuments and temples that are all designed to fine-tune the power of one's consciousness and the power of the planet as well. And if you look at that in terms of dimensional alchemy, you've got the propulsion to be time travelers. I mean, you just smash through the frequency fences. This is my work. I mean, wherever there's an issue in terms of frequency fences, I mean, I have the solutions because I'm not bound by one gateway of knowledge. I'm not bound by one gateway of technology. I'm working with trans-dimensional gateways.
And beings.
And we are, we are the technology. And that's what we've got to remember when we're up against the false matrix.
Can I
Our
ask
freedom is in our spiritual warriorship. Yeah.
In your contact communications and your multidimensional communications, when you're working in, say, the King's Chamber, because I saw that video, that was just amazing. Like, how many different beings come through and communicate with you? Are they the same beings or the same race of beings? Or are they, like, are they beings recognized, or are they always changing?
It depends. I have very strong and profound contact with Sirius. I work immensely with the void and the sacred feminine, which is aligned with Sekhmet and the lion beings of Sirius as well. Often I'll work with Source also. Often I'll work with future dimensions of my own consciousness as well, because as you know, I'm a highly evolved being in a physical body. So, yeah. So part of busting
just on time travel.
I know, right? So part of my purpose in being here is to provide the the gateways of consciousness that smash the frequency fences, because of
Mhm.
course an evolved soul can do that. So
Do you
the
work with
dimensional,
this,
yeah,
the
I,
serious beings that you work with? Are they from the feline race?
yeah, of course, but
Mhm.
that's only one part of the gateway. And you know, I've had where I've been sitting on the banks of the Nile. Nico's just
Oh,
put a light on me.
thank you, Nico. Thank you. I wasn't sure
So
if it was Nico or a car.
I know, or like a reptilian. So, for example, every gateway will probably bring a different experience.
Mm-hmm.
I have really profound connections with the Lemurians as well. So, you know, that's a super ancient. And because of the nature of the time travel that I do, I go back, forward, side to side. I have dimensional contact. I have physical contact. I have ET contact. I mean, I'm having experiences on so many different levels. I don't just work clairvoyantly. I mean, I'm working with the entirety of my consciousness and the fullness of me as a human being as well. So every
Mm-hmm.
portal of my sensory perception is utilized, but that's also part of the way I've taken myself to the next level with my own training, because I've been trained for the last 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
But before that, I already had gifts where I could see, I had contact experiences, I had visitations by dimensional beings. This has always been my reality. And I mean,
Yeah.
physically manifesting in my room, which, you know, I'm an experiencer. I don't really like to utilize that word because it's so much more than that. What I was going to say is what happens, for example, because I've already in my previous incarnations been a planetary grid worker, I immediately show up at the sites and I know where I need to be. I know how the technologies work. I'm aware that I'm aware of how the technologies operate, particularly in Egypt. You
Yes.
know, why a particular temple structure or a monument is constructed in that way, and I'll know how to make the site go live.
Yeah.
You know,
Amazing.
there's even a queen's tomb in the Valley of the Kings that I work with, and when I step into it, the whole site goes live. So when you're talking about those feline energies, I not only activate the feline energies, I'm reactivating the deliberately deleted sacred feminine that is, of course, part of
Mm.
the lineage and the legacy of ancient Egypt, and part of the reason why the false matrix has been allowed to dominate the quality of life and existence.
Mm-hmm.
So, in terms of my own spiritual warrior fare and my own lineage and my own legacy, I'm aware of what's missing and I can solve the what is missing, which is what not a lot of experts can do in this arena, because of course they've got missing parts within the context of their information, but missing parts within the context of their inherited knowledge.
Right.
My knowledge is ancient.
Mm-hmm.
It's been passed to me incarnation after incarnation. This is why the sites go live.
And you
This
can
is
access it.
why, yeah, this is why I have access
They have
to.
it, but they can't access it.
Yeah, and that's the difference between being a researcher who's bound to the internet or bound to secondhand information. Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, it's interesting, but it's not as interesting as inheriting that knowledge. And
Yeah.
so it's inherited in all of its purity
Mm-hmm.
as it was then. So yeah, I'm a time traveler, and that allows me to, yeah, smash through the frequency fences of the false matrix. That's why I was born knowing that the false matrix is bullshit, and
Mm-hmm.
then questioning it. You know, when I was a child and I was sent to preschool, I was like, oh my God, why are they making me do these things? It's so stupid. Like, why? Why? And, you know, so
And
my
skip school at preschool.
I skipped school. I was done after a week because I thought it was so dumb. And I was like, I don't want to be here. It's like, it's not appropriate. You know, I pretty much got it immediately, and all of my young life, teenage life, I was perplexed. I mean, I was like, why is it like this? And of course, I was hugely psychic and a huge empath as well. So the false matrix was also flooring my life force as well, because of course I'd also taken on board my mum's wound as well. So I had her healing to really process within the context of my own energy system and my own trauma as well. So her trauma became my trauma, and that's how I have been able to trace where the wound comes into place. And, you know, as a time traveler, I can trace it within the context of whether it's hereditary, whether it's genetic, whether it is part of something that is a past life incarnation, etc.
Is that pretty common for people to take on their parents' trauma? I mean, I know that we get a lot of it passed down through our DNA and our karmic lines, you know, ancestral lineage, but is it our responsibility to heal if our parents aren't doing the work?
It's our responsibility to heal what we've inherited.
Okay.
So where we have trauma or where we have actually programming, we've got frequency fences. And so as children, we can, you know, even if our parents seek us to be free, we're still engaging with the false matrix. So we will always have areas of our field, areas of our consciousness that we need to transform. So again, the work is for life, you know. That's important. And it's important to see it as, you know, it's not risk-free being human. It's part of our human experience. So we got to get out of the willy-nilly kind of elitism of spirituality where everything should be perfect. Of course it's not. Once we can really begin to bulldoze the frequency fences, then we can also bulldoze the individuals who also project frequency fences on us. And that is through thoughts and feelings. It's a metaphysical process. And this is why I work massively with frequency and with detection of it. And I really look at the signature of an individual and really look at the signature by behind the words that people utilize over and above the information that they're giving, you know. And that's why I'm really interested in even the interviews that I have. You know, the frequency of the interviews, it sets the tone of the information that we walk on a journey with, and where it takes us in the interview, and whether our frequency fences put into place within the context of interviews. I can only take that interview so far, because of course the interview needs to be a collaboration. It needs to be an entanglement of positive and good. And it needs to be an exchange where evolution is, of course, the primary focus over and above any agenda. Yeah, because it is about, you know.
I always know with you, I can have like a list of 10 questions and the interview just goes on its own life. It has its own life, you know.
Yeah, and yeah, everyone knows that. You know, the guys who interview me, who know me really well, yeah, that's how it's meant to be, because of course it
It's live
exposes the
dynamic.
truth in its purest way. And of course, truth is the finest way to smash the frequency fences.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it isn't prescriptive, and it can't be what he said, what she said, what he said, what she said, because that again places us in frequency fences, and then the
Right.
constraint is conventional, which means we are not in progress, we're not in evolution. So what we should be accessing are discussions that take us on new journeys, that
Mm-hmm.
take us into new possibilities, that give us new questions in terms of what ascension is, what evolution is. You
Yeah.
know, that's really significant. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, even our interviews could be different. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I
You
don't
have
want
ideas?
to, I don't want standard questions. I want interesting questions. I want questions
Right.
that take me further within the context of my own work and what
Right.
it means to be in service, you know?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
The
These are all
inspiration.
frequency, yeah, these are all frequency fences that we need to smash.
Right. The inspiration should be in both directions. Right.
Yeah, and it's about collaboration, and it's
Yeah.
about, yeah, it's about one, you know, getting back to this question on unity, which
Mm-hmm.
again is a key factor in terms of how we raise the vibration of the planet.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
mean, that's such a big thing for me is unity consciousness, and I don't feel like it's focused on enough in our arena, you know?
Totally.
Yeah, totally not focused on. So that's a big
Yeah, it
topic
really
for
isn't. And yeah, it's big. Yeah,
me.
it's really big. But you know what I think is happening? I think there's a tribe coming into place, a community coming into place, um, where individuals have really different values.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the individuals who are non-conventional. And there's a community there where, you know, those individuals are where that we're keys rather than being on our own elitist.
Right.
And we know that there is a requirement of coming together. And, you know, this is all part of um, my project with Avatars of the Earth Gathering,
Mm-hmm.
that we lose the elitism and we start playing reality in a community.
Right. Right.
And then that also takes us into next level contact.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes us into it takes us into next level human experiences, human relationships, community entanglement
Right.
that is higher frequency
Yeah,
rather
and our
than,
whole world is
yeah,
designed to not be in community. I mean, we drive in our cars by ourselves. We live in our houses by ourselves. Like you don't even see people on the street anymore in your neighborhood. I mean, we're all being separated and separated and separated, and I feel like we do need to move more into unity consciousness mindset so that we can start changing our structures and changing our systems to allow for that.
you know who's really tackling that? Scarlett did an interview with me this week. I mean,
Uh-huh.
people are really interested in, you know, the role that she's playing in our community and the role that she's playing in, you know, the presentation of my work, and how the generational unity can also be super visible. But she's tackling that subject in
Oh,
her
cool.
music,
That's
and
great.
really looking at how her music can reach the the individuals who are isolated, reach the individuals who are disconnected because of the false matrix, you
Mm-hmm.
know. So she's working at a next level of dimensional assistance. And of course, music and the arts
Yes.
is the way we can impact so many more individuals, because she's operating, she's been initiated through my schools, and she's been initiated in this high frequency new paradigm ascension.
Yeah.
So she's holding these codes and they're entangled in music, and her music is going to smash the frequency fences. So
That's beautiful.
wherever or whenever we're in our sacred destiny, our spiritual warfare is that we can smash the frequency fences. So our sacred destiny is most important of all, of course.
Yes,
Yeah.
I can't wait to see her in Mount Shasta. I'm going to interview her live on the ground.
Yeah. I mean,
On the mountain.
She's floored us in terms of her next level intelligence. I mean, I can just stand back and go, oh my goodness, this is the future. This is the next generation. And, you know, I don't stand anywhere close to her. I mean, her metaphysics is genius in her creativity. It's extraordinary in her intelligence to tackle the false matrix and the very issues of our times is just, I mean, it's so formidable. I mean, I'm just like,
that's
wow.
amazing.
Yeah.
That's great. So should we talk about avatars a little bit? I know it's probably getting colder and colder on the mountain. Tracey's with us on the mountain, everyone. And as you can see, it's dark there now. So you have this beautiful event coming up September 27th through the 29th called Avatars of the Earth Gathering. And, you know, I'll be there. I'm super excited and honored to work with you on this project and to be part of it. And, you know, I just wanted to ask you some basic questions like, you know, what's the significance for people who are coming to come dressed as their avatars? And why was that such a big piece of the vision that you downloaded when you got the idea to create avatars of the earth?
I'm really interested in empowerment. And so the whole ritual of dressing is embodiment and initiation.
Uh-oh. Did we lose you? You're frozen. I hope we didn't lose you. Stand by, everyone. We are having technical glitches live from Mount Shasta. Hopefully Tracey will be right back with us. If we didn't lose the connection completely. It says she's still with us. I know. Dex, no. Well, we will stand by. How are you guys doing? Oh, we lost her. Yeah, she just clicked off, but hopefully she'll call us back. So I'm going to check in with the people in the chat room and say hello. How's it going? How are you guys doing? Saturday in Australia, is that correct? How are you enjoying? How are you enjoying the interview so far? Oh, thank you for waiting. Yeah, I've been wanting to get to the topic of avatars with Tracey because it's so complex. There's so many levels. There's so many like beautiful things in the works. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to look at the website, but it's avatarsoftheearthgathering.com. And you can go online and you can see the lineup of presenters and workshops and musicians. Tracey's partner, Nico, has been putting on events for years, and he's worked with all kinds of musicians, you know, from California and all over. And so I know that piecing together the musicians for avatars was a really big, you know, it was really a heart thing for Nico. And so I'm expecting really great music at the event. And, you know, and artists as well. There'll be artists there, painters, healers, all different kinds of artists. So Avatars of the Earth is also, from what I know, on top of Mount Shasta. It's going to be at the ski lift. And it's right, we'll literally be on top of the mountain, which is pretty incredible. So let me see what she said. She said they lost internet. We might have to end it. The mountain has a life of its own, and most of the time when you're on the mountain, you don't have a signal. So it's pretty amazing that we've had Tracey for an hour and a half now without losing any signal. But it's usually a big void there. So we'll give her like a few more minutes to see if she can get back on, because I would like for her to tell you more about Avatars of the Earth Gathering. It's going to be pretty amazing. It's the first year. There's never been a show, an event like this one. And, you know, I don't want to speak for Tracey, but I know that coming dressed as your avatar is a big part of it, because it helps you play the role that you may want to play in life, right? So it helps you envision and embody the character or the avatar that is dwelling inside of your soul, inside your body. So that's a big thing, right? Because if we can bring that out into the world, into the physical, and manifest in the 3D, then all of those traits will come with it, ideally. So that's my take on it, but I would love to hear your thoughts on it, if you guys have any thoughts, and while we wait for Tracey. And Tracey also, you can learn more about her. Tracey and Nico have a mystery school called Ancient Intelligence Mystery School, and their website is ancientintelligencemysteryschool.com. And they have an ongoing training program that you can join if you want to learn more about her teachings and the type of you know, metaphysics that she teaches to her students. Is not necessarily what she was trained in, but of course there's part of that is in there as well. But it's been really great because, you know, they go to different power sites and stargates around the planet, like Uluru and the Great Pyramid of Giza, and Japan and Astonbury. And they will often hold the classes from those stargates and from those power sites, so that when you're with them taking the classes, you get like the direct downloads with them. So it's pretty powerful stuff. So I would highly recommend it to anyone who wants to learn more about Tracey's work. And I have a feeling they're not coming back, because it's been a good 3 or 4 minutes and we haven't gotten back or heard back from Tracey yet. Also, while I have you guys, I wanted to mention that next Tuesday night, we're going to have Lori McDonald on the show along with Tracey, and we're going to talk about more. We're going to talk more about Avatar of the Earth Gathering and what to expect at the gathering, and what kinds of topics we're going to learn from Lori and Tracey at the event. So hopefully next week we can get more into detail about Avatars of the Earth, since right when I started talking about it tonight, we lost Tracey, unfortunately. Tracey, come back. We all miss you. Dex says, a chance to dress up is always good fun. I was thinking we should have dressed up for this interview. That would have been a lot of fun. But unfortunately, the thought came to me too late. Oh my goodness. Well, I think we're going to call this a wrap, you guys. Tracey, thank you so much for coming on the air. I'm sorry that we lost you. But I'm also really grateful that we had you for an hour and a half and that you shared all of your wisdom with us directly from Mount Shasta. And I will be seeing you, well, Tuesday, but also I'll be seeing you soon in person in just less than 2 weeks. So I'm really looking forward to that. And I haven't really said this anywhere on my video interviews, but I am going to be moderating the Awakening Ascension panel at Avatars of the Earth Gathering. So if you are going up to Mount Shasta for the event, please come to the Awakening Ascension panel. I'll be moderating that. And on the panel, we have Tracey Ash, Lori McDonald, Laura Eisenhower, and Shima Moore. And I know, I was thinking that too, Dex. I was like, maybe Tuesday night we can dress up. And I'm also going to have 2 workshops, during the conference. So I've designed my own line of essential oils called Divine Light Essentials. You can see them right there. And I'm going to be giving a couple of workshops on how to heal with essential oils. So that line you're looking at is called the Emotional Healing Line. And I also have a chakra balancing line, which is really amazing. It's designed to heal your chakras and balance them. And I'll also have a booth there where people can smell the oils, try the oils, enjoy the oils, and learn more about how to heal with essential oils. So I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be amazing. I don't think I'm going to sleep for like 3 or 4 days. But it's going to be great fun. So I'll be announcing more about my oils collection. It's a ton of work, so I haven't really fully rolled out the launch yet, but it's coming. So I will let you guys go. Thank you so much to everyone in the chat room. And thank you so much to Tracey and Nico. I'm sorry we lost you guys, but we will see you again very soon. And if you like this video, please hit the like button and subscribe and hit the bell for notifications so that you can hear about us coming online again, Tuesday and all the other shows after that. And we'll also be broadcasting, hopefully live from the Avatars of the Earth Gathering on this channel. So we can bring you like up-to-date information and events that are happening during the conference. So thank you, Dex and Lizzie. It was really great having you guys here with us in the chat room. And I wish you all a beautiful harvest full moon and a happy Friday the 13th. Hopefully you had a good day and a good evening, and I'll see you next time on the Ascension Sessions. Thank you.